Thank you, Madam Chairman. The treatment of our brave veterans by this government and previous governments is a national disgrace. We should not be having this debate, Madam Chairman. A debate about honor and patriotism being rewarded with betrayal by our government. It is shameful that the British government is allowing hundreds of our Special Forces veterans to be investigated over incidents that occurred decades ago. Not yet. Decades ago in Northern Ireland. To appease the Irish government, these courageous men should be enjoying their hard-earned retirement, not facing. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The treatment of our brave veterans by this government and previous governments is a national disgrace. We should not be having this debate, Madam Chairman. A debate about honor and patriotism being rewarded with betrayal by our government. It is shameful that the British government is allowing hundreds of our Special Forces veterans to be investigated over incidents that occurred decades ago. Not yet. Decades ago in Northern Ireland. To appease the Irish government, these courageous men should be enjoying their hard-earned retirement, not facing prosecution. Before we continue, do us a little favor by subscribing to the channel because over 98% of you watching haven't subscribed. It costs you nothing. Not even a penny to join this channel. Have you subscribed? Thanks so much. Defending the British people from IRA terrorists. The same British people who value these soldiers and who are outraged at the unfair and unjust action of this government. Many of the so-called IRA victims killed were murderers and terrorists. How on earth can anyone stand up to defend these people over our special forces? And yet this government rewards our bravest service personnel by bringing these prosecutions. They reward them. They reward them by threatening legal action, by putting them through the stress, not yet stress, of a trial, by ruining their lives when they deserve nothing but our respect, our support, and our gratitude. Well, I will defend them, and my party will stand up for them. I will not stand by and remain silent. I will speak for them. I am humbled by what they did for us, and I know that the British people feel the same. Thank you, Madam Chairman. You could almost feel the desks trembling as one Reform MP went off like a firework jammed into a pint glass, blasting Labour with accusations so heavy the entire room snapped awake, like someone had hit the alarm bell at 6 a.m. And the timing hours after. Fresh reports emerged about British veterans facing investigations again. At the exact same moment, allegations were swirling that certain Labour MPs were defending groups accused of targeting UK forces. Decades ago, the tension was already thick. And then this bloke stood up and turned it nuclear. The speaker, a woman who clearly just wanted a calm afternoon, announced him with that classic exhausted tone, like she already knew she was about to regret giving him the floor. He thanked her politely, the calm before the storm, then went straight for the jugular. No warming up. No easing in, just a full throat punch of political fury. He says, Madam Speaker, the treatment of our veterans by successive governments is beyond shameful. And you could hear the benches shuffle. He wasn't reading off a sheet. He was speaking like someone who'd held this in for years. He brought up the decades-old conflicts again. Those same operations in Northern Ireland that have resurfaced in headlines this week, the investigations, the inquiries, the letters landing on the doormats of men now in their 60s and 70s, men who thought their battles were long done and the Reform MP wasn't having any of it. He said it was a national disgrace, his words, that men who served, who risked everything, who defended British civilians during some of the bloodiest nights this country has ever known, were now being treated like criminals. While, in his view, politicians were bending over for groups who once targeted British soldiers. At this point, the Labour benches reacted instantly. A wave of groans rolled across like someone had opened a window on a cold day. But the MP kept going. Louder now. You know when someone's so fed up that they don't even care. They're causing a scene. That was him. He accused Labour of siding with groups whose hands were stained with violence, clarifying quickly that these were his accusations, not confirmed facts, and that he was outraged at what he saw as political sympathy for people who once terrorized British streets. He wasn't claiming Labour officially supported terrorists. He hammered that point home. But he accused them of moral contortions so twisted they'd put a circus act to shame. And that, mate, is when the chamber absolutely blew up. MPs shouting, the speaker standing up, demanding order, one bloke in the corner shaking his fist like he'd just missed his bus. The whole thing collapsing into chaos. But the Reform MP wasn't about to be drowned out. He raised his voice over the shouting, powerful, defiant, and said he refused to sit quietly while, in his words, our heroes are dragged into courtrooms while politicians flirt with narratives that portray them as villains. The intensity was unreal. He talked about the men who served in those old operations, how they spent their youth patrolling dangerous streets, how they were ambushed, shot at, bombed, how they watched friends die. He described them as fathers, grandfathers, retirees who should be at home gardening or watching the match, not being marched into legal proceedings for decisions they made under fire decades ago. And then he delivered the line that will be replayed 1,000,000 times on TikTok by midnight. I will defend them when this government will not, and I will speak for them when Labour refuses to. The place detonated again. This is where it gets emotional. The type of moment that makes your chest tighten without you expecting it. He told stories of veterans who now live quietly in little towns who haven't spoken about the things they saw since the 70s, by who still wake up at night shaking from memories they tried to bury. He said these men didn't serve for applause, medals, or money. They served because Britain needed them. And now he argued they feel abandoned, betrayed, forgotten. He even mentioned meeting a former soldier last month, a 72-year-old, who spent his mornings feeding pigeons and his afternoons waiting anxiously for letters from solicitors. The MP said he looked that man in the eye and promised him he wouldn't let Parliament turn its back on him. And now today, in front of everyone, he honored that promise. But he didn't stop there. Oh no, he shifted gears again from emotional to volcanic. He turned back to the labor benches and accused them of weaponizing historical grievances and pretending that British soldiers and paramilitary groups were morally equivalent. Once again, he made clear these were his claims, his political interpretations, not proven facts. But that didn't calm anything down. He slammed the desk, saying it was outrageous that political points were being made at the expense of the very people who kept Britain standing during some of the darkest nights in modern history. Labour MPs shouted back. One pointed angrily, another shouted something that got drowned out by the speaker, calling for calm again. Her voice strained like she was trying to stop a pub fight with one hand tied behind her back. Then everything shifted. A hush suddenly swept the room. Slow, eerie, because the Reform MP paused, took a breath, looked around the chamber, then he said something no one expected. He pointed out that the public, ordinary Brits out there living real lives, working, struggling, surviving, are furious. He said that every time a new veteran investigation hits the news, he receives hundreds of letters, thousands of messages from people who feel like the establishment cares more about political optics than the lives of the men who defended this country. Real people, he said, not Twitter activists, not think tank academics, not anonymous accounts stirring drama. Real people, taxi drivers, builders, nurses, retired couples, all asking the same question. Why are our soldiers being treated like criminals? And then he twisted the dagger. He said that while Labour MPs were busy fighting battles from 40 years ago, trying to rewrite history in ways that suited their ideological narratives, again, his words, not mine, veterans were fighting to hold on to their homes because legal bills were swallowing their pensions. He accused Labour of failing to show moral leadership at the exact moment Britain needed clarity. And he said loudly that the public was tired of politicians who act brave on social media but go silent when British soldiers need defending. Social media erupted instantly. Twitter trending, Instagram Reels, TikTok edits.